Everybody knows the 1984 movie Ghostbusters with Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and all the other ones. But what if I told you that the supernatural has a long history of having laughs and scares at the same time? I'm going to take you on a little ride down way in the beginnings of cinema, even as we investigate the family tree of Ghostbusters. It's spacebar?
Yep.
Okay, so we have a quote from the book Making Ghostbusters. It has its basic roots in American humor and American film. Abbott Costello, the Bowery Boys, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis, Bob Hope, everyone did a ghost picture. I thought it would be great to write one for this decade, updating the form by using the concept of science technology and by employing the kinds of special effects available today. But how do Hanna-Barbera fit into the picture? What role do monsters and monsters play? Sit tight and enjoy the show. So Danse Macabre. The book is by Stephen King. I don't know why it didn't appear. There's another book called Wild and Crazy, guys, which we'll get to in a minute. I think the picture might not be in there. So the golden age of horror begins. We have the big three, who did it with such panache, such style, such elan. Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Mummy. The kings of the underworld. Never mind your Freddys, your Jasons, your Michael Myers, whatever. These will remain eternal as the legends. All the modern jump scares and gore effects we're accustomed to are no substitute for their genuine class. Frankenstein, the original, still holds up. Dracula still holds up. Wolfman, Phantom, Creature from the Black Lagoon, they all hold up today. So, Stephen King says, the great universal monsters of the Depression days, Frankenstein's monster, the Wolfman, the Mummy, and the Count, were dying in that particularly messy and embarrassing way that the movie seemed reserved for the terminally ill. Hollywood decided to play them for laughs. Hence, Abbott and Costello met the monsters, as did the Bowery Boys, not to mention those lovable eye boinkers and head knockers, the Three Stooges. In the 40s, the monsters themselves became stooges. Now, I argue with Mr. King, fabulous writer though he is. World War II was going on, and audiences needed to laugh. This is why, for example, the Claude Rains Phantom became not a story of a madman, but of a romance of a man who was trying to right a wrong. And it became less horror and more, a little more fantasy, a little bit more of the music. Now, starting in the 60s, television comes in, and we get shows like Addams Family, The Munsters, a cartoon show called Groovy Ghoulies, which had them as a pop band. There was a pinball game I quite liked called Monster Bash. And then there was Beetleborgs. Oh God, Beetleborgs. I remember that one. And the Hotel Transylvania movies. One of which I caught on TV the other night. It was quite funny. Okay, so here is the old definition. One who investigates hauntings with the intent to debunk them. So, everybody complains these days about reboots and remakes. It is nothing new. It is not. There was a play called The Ghost Breaker in 1910. It was made once, I think, in the early 30s, and then with Bob Hope as Ghost Breakers, and then with Martin and Lewis as Scared Stiff. And then there's the Bowery Boys, who are lost to time. They did a movie called Spook Chasers. Now, Spookbusters, I'm sorry, they used it a few times. Now, the working title for Spookbusters was Three Guesses and the First Who Don't Count. Don't say it. We all know what it is. It was recycled as Ghost Chasers and Spook Chasers, and there was two others called Ghosts on the Loose and Spooks Run Wild. And here we have video.
Incorporated, you make them, we shake them. Bob Hope speaking. Yes, Paulette Goddard's a partner in this firm. What? You want me to send her around? Listen, if I could tell Paulette what to do, I wouldn't send her to your house. Sucker. You know, I never knew there were so many ghosts roaming around loose until Paulette and I got into the Ghost Breakers. Believe me, the cat and the canary was a pink tea compared to this picture. It all starts in one terrible night. That Bradford must be giving a party. That's the night that Paulette inherits a ghostly ancient castle off the coast of Cuba. The place is filled with mummies and spooks that walk at midnight. There are murders and death warnings planned to frighten Paulette and me. We'll be frightened. I'll match you to see who faints first. One reason Paulette and I are such good ghost breakers is that we don't believe in ghosts. Or do I?
Now, at the beginning of that trailer, I noticed the building 55 Central Park West, which in 1984 was the Zool building in the movie. So, and we have
those terrible faces, I can't stand it. Look, there they are.
Don't be scared, folks.
No, I'm telling you.
Can everybody hear okay? If you want.
If you think that's a tango, wait till you see what happens to Pete and Jerry when a gang of ruthless killers get on their trail. Somebody's got to move. The heat's on in New York, so they stow away on the cruise to Cuba.
I don't know what a time feels like.
But the chill is on in the haunted castle of Lost Island when the boys go spook hunting with beautiful Elizabeth Scott.
There ain't no such thing.
And that's just your imagination. It's signal to this.
My screen.
Rangers went in there looking for you.
I guess it's all right.
under a terrific mental state. And if it'll make you feel any better, we'll work in the next room. But please believe me when I tell
I'll
you,
just use
there's
this.
nobody here but us.
Ah, we're back. So, after all that, you get the monsters, but then you get in 1967, 68, 69, Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Hanna-Barbera took the formula of those old movies with Bowery Boys and Martin and Lewis, and they gave it a traveling band who roamed around America looking for monsters and cases to solve. And it became a cash cow. There was Goober and the Ghost Chasers, Funky Phantom, and a whole lot of others with the same formula. But those two are the most pertinent because television cartoons come about and people start to wonder, is this sort of violent for my children? So Hanna-Barbera and all the other companies find formulas that are safe, non-violent, kind of funny. One of these is the ghost comedy. So, and then you get a company called Filmation, which rides the coattails of Scooby-Doo with a live action show. You will.
We're the Ghostbusters. I'm Spencer. He's Tracy. I'm Ronald. We're the Ghostbusters. We're clever, courageous, and strong. The street has been haunted with dispersions and rattlings. Your blood has been curdled. We know what to do. Your skin has the creepies. You wonder what's happening. You're safe in our hands. We will take care of you. We're the Ghostbusters. Spirits and demons beware. The Ghostbusters. Wherever you're hiding out there. We know how you're up to. We're ready for anything. And we're fearless and never afraid. We're right there whenever we go. With a song and a giant, trouble so fade.
So that was kind of a goofy comedy. It turned the monsters into utter imbeciles, which, with our two heroes and their pet gorilla, isn't saying much. Now, this may become a little bit of a plot point later on. I bring it up for a good reason. So you have Sid and Marty Krofft doing Land of the Lost, H.R. Pufnstuf, Hanna-Barbera's Banana Splits. This follows in that tradition. But with the 70s, there comes a time of great upheaval. The 60s were the flower power generation. People didn't know what to do. The powers that be were scared. And things got interesting for horror. There was the Watergate scandal, there was Vietnam. People didn't quite know whether or not they could actually trust America. And you get two very important horror movies. You get The Exorcist and Amityville. So The Exorcist was notable for bringing possession to suburbia and for being a rather gut-wrenching film because it's about a mother who sees that her daughter is becoming something terrible and she doesn't know what to do. Science can't answer it. Only religion can, it turns out. And Amityville is about a young couple who moves into a haunted house. So here's King again. Amityville's subtext is one of economic unease, and this is a theme that Stuart Rosenberg, the director, plays on constantly in terms of the times. 18% inflation, mortgage rates out of sight, gasoline selling at a cool 40 a gallon, $1.40 a gallon, I should say. Huh. Honey, please. The Amityville horror, like The Exorcist, could not have come along at a more opportune moment. At the conclusion, the house seems to literally tear itself apart. Windows crash in, black goop comes dribbling out of the walls, the cellar stairs cave in, and I found myself wondering not if the Lutz clan would get out alive, but if they had adequate homeowners insurance. Substantively, however, The Exorcist is a film about explosive social change, a finely honed focusing point for that entire youth explosion in the late 60s and early 70s. It was a movie for all those parents who felt, in a kind of agony and terror, that they were losing their children and could not understand why or how it was happening. Religious trappings aside, every adult in America understood what the film's powerful subtext was saying. They understood the demon in Regan McNeil would have responded enthusiastically to the fish chant in Woodstock. So this line about black goop dribbling out of the walls, this will again become important. I have a funny feeling it is the basis for the famous ectoplasm that we will encounter many years later. On Poltergeist. Yeah, that's 1982. But it's still a holdover from the 70s, I find. Notably, the twist here is that the house is brand new, but the land developers built over a graveyard without moving the bodies first, only the headstones. And the ghosts interact with the family's young daughter through television. They use our technology against us. And the link here is Richard Edlund, who did the special effects.
The film, however, relied on psychological suspense, and the ghost was rarely seen. By 1981, when producer Steven Spielberg began work on Poltergeist, special effects had advanced to the point where dead characters could convincingly share screen time with the living. To realize his cast of skirts, Spielberg turned to industrial light and magic and visual effects supervisor Richard Edlund.
Poltergeist now was a ghost story set in contemporary times in the house next door. The effects scenes were really the punchline to the film.
To achieve the startling shot of a giant beast lunging at speed freely, played by Craig T. Nelson, Edlund utilized a technique called forced perspective. The camera was set up close to a miniature door, behind which was a puppet of the beast. Several feet back, a full-size door frame was carefully positioned so it would align with the foreground miniature. When filmed together, the seemingly gigantic monster and Nelson appeared to be just a few feet apart. One year after Poltergeist, Edlund opened his own visual effects company, Boss Film Studios, and found himself right back in the ghost business.
Boss Film is born. We're off and running on Ghostbusters, which we had just 10 months to do.
Not a long time to materialize a bizarre group of fools born in the mind of comedian Dan Aykroyd.
They are unhappy, vicious, really relative to the food. Giving outrageous demands of your time to exactly.
Early in the film, the Ghostbusters encountered the apparition of an elderly like rabbit, which suddenly metamorphoses into a hideous spook. To accomplish the effect, the boss proved that the light cast or body mold of the actress playing the librarian. This became the basis for an animatronic show engineered by effects designer Steve Johnson. What a very strongly facial expression, feel treated, which necessitated routine performed from a fixed position. To create the illusion of flying, the camera would push them down a track up to flying. Making sure that he was charging for the camera. There's a scene where I'm very tired after one of the Ghostbusters and Anthony flying around the chandelier. And he shows a turntable, which is not the case to actually ride on. Bob films innovative designs and special effects techniques help make Ghostbusters one of the movie's biggest hits. Reach from the special place held by ghosts in cinematic history. Ghosts are not the humor of hits forever, by the way. Just like the Bowie Boys, Alex Costello, Black Hole, so we're just in the modern version of the old movie.
Okay. So there's how effects come into play. And now, while the 70s was good for scares, it was also a great time for laughs. Saturday Night Live and SCTV, come on. You have Dan Aykroyd, Gilda Radner, Bill Murray, John Candy, Martin Short, and a writer named Harold Ramis, who also directed a lot of, he directed I think he co-wrote Animal House, he directed Stripes, and I believe Caddyshack and Meatballs are the films that he directed during the late 70s and early 80s. Dan's partner, John Belushi, moment of silence, was in Animal House and the Blues Brothers, and they were going to do Ghostbusters together, but he passed away very tragically in his 30s. Fame and fortune got to him, you see, but he lived on as that green spud. Yeah.
That was modeled after him?
It was based on his character in Animal House.
Oh.
A guy who just wants to have fun. Okay. Now, there's a new definition that comes up. One who captures ghosts and investigates paranormal phenomena with the aid of specialized equipment. Now you're going from debunking ghosts to catching them. Now, here's where the old and the new collide. In Poltergeist, the ghosts use technology against us. Now, only 2 short years later, humans are fighting back with technology. The humor of it comes from, not from just making a lot of jokes, but from positioning it as a little bit of class warfare. You have these 3 guys dressed up as kind of slovenly janitors or exterminators. The first thing they do is they walk into an upper class hotel. And the ghost there is something of a nuisance. It doesn't hurt anybody. It just kind of, they just try to kind of sweep it on the rug, never say anything until someone complains. I am familiar with this working in the credit union, that there's never a problem until someone complains, and then we have to make it a rule. So the joke is that they come in and they start wreaking Tom and Jerry level havoc against something that really doesn't deserve it. They rip up the hotel, they tear up the ballroom, and it's nothing scary. It's not a terrible ghost. It's a Taco Bell fart given life. And and everyone just looks at them embarrassed because they're holding this smelly trap that's smoking and everything, and no manners at all, and it is hysterical. But it walks the line by playing the horror just as well as Poltergeist or Amityville at the beginning, where the librarian is running for her life from, and there's the decimal cards flying about everywhere. How would that be nowadays? Would it be a swarm of megabytes? Little green ones and zeros flying everywhere like mosquitoes. It goes from that, it goes into demonic possession like The Exorcist, and it comes out the other end as a giant baby-faced marshmallow man. So, but Ghostbusters was popular enough. I'm sorry that's the end of the show, but I'm going to go on. Ghostbusters was popular enough to get the cartoon show, The Real Ghostbusters. Now, why are you asking yourselves, why is it called Real? Because Filmation, which had a massive success with He-Man and She-Ra at the time, saw that they were making the movie with the same title as that live action show and said, wait a minute, something's not right here. We need to get a control of that name. There was a settlement between Filmation and Columbia Pictures, but the problem was Filmation got to ask for the rights to make the cartoon show. Columbia Pictures went with Deke, and Filmation repurposed that old sitcom as its own cartoon show. I wish I had the, can I use YouTube here? Thanks. I forgot to. Little help?
Yeah. Here we go.
Thank you. Okay. Here is what it was. Let's see if I can get the opening.
You need the right marketer. Like one who can optimize this, balance that, launch the. Let's go.
Now, if you've ever been to a KB Toys or a Toy Works in the 90s, you will know what this show is because the tapes, there was a rack, a large rack crammed with unsold tapes. So that's what happened. They dusted off the old show and made a cartoon show out of it, but a little bit more along the lines of the He-Man. A little bit more serious than the previous show was. Now, guess which one lasted until now and which one died a death? It's not a hard question. That one died because Filmation went bankrupt in the late 80s. Their last show was Brave Star, a space western. And then the library passed through many, many hands. It went through L'Oreal, it went through Hallmark, it went through, I think it belonged to BCI Eclipse for a while, and now it's in the hands of DreamWorks. They are doing He-Man and She-Ra for Netflix. One wonders if this will get a revival. Any questions, really?
So this would be for the Ghostbusters movie, or?
Yes, 1975 was a live action show
Okay, I remember that.
with one of the stars, Larry Storch, is going to turn 100 next year. He has publicized this on Facebook. I think he is a little bit unwise to do so, because as soon as you say it, irony is going to strike. I have a funny feeling. Praying the best of luck for him, though.
What I mean, saying in advance it's going to be 100?
Yeah, next year he's planning a party for it.
Oh, yeah, because so with Betty White, then,
Yes. Actually, you bring up a good point. Dan Aykroyd used a lot of his family was, as you said earlier, I believe, were spiritualists. The term ectoplasm is a substance that is generated during seances. But it was all too often faked with, say, cheesecloth.
So that's why I was thinking, like, the same thing with Poltergeist too. They use that when you watch it. A lot of it was in the YouTube.
Oh, yes, yes.
So it's kind of interesting how, see, those, like, I never really thought about Poltergeist and Ghostbusters, but now they are, so it kind of makes sense that.
Yeah, the theme of it really is the humor comes from treating ghosts not as something terrible and dangerous, but as a typical household pest, like rats or roaches or something,
yeah.
and just calling in these team of exterminators, these Orkin men, to get rid of them.
Right. But I can picture like when Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd talking about the stories.
Yes.
And they're talking about like, what if we do it this way? You know, these things play on Ghostbusters and Poltergeist and this Otherworldly. This is right now you're at.
Oh, yes.
Like, I really believe that there's something like Gozer in that movie. They represented something. There's something like it in somewhere. And like, what's the story after that?
Frankly, the movie is, this is going to be somewhat heretical to say, but it's a little bit of a mess, I find. It's Dan's concept, but the Stripes formula.
Right.
And the formula rejects the concept. It loses its way in, like, as soon as they've made it big. Because if you think about it, it's take away the effects, take away the supernatural. It's the story of a con man who's trying to get one over on people. And they are his fixers. They come up with the fancy toys, the car, that make everything real. What do they do in the ballroom? They close the door and lock it behind them so that no one can see that there is something going on. Well, thank you very much, though. I wish I could have gone the full hour.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
You're very welcome. Anytime.
You guys have any more questions? Comments?
Yeah, I do kind of stumble over my words sometimes. Especially, thank you. This was about a month or two of research and writing.